Yeah, I figured out what it was. The cable. And then I found that the actual cable like 5 minutes ago. So a lot of people. Spend some time. Well, uh, like, if anything, we'll skip the first one and go straight into Pescado Silencio. The the one where I go through the story of the. I think that's where we're gonna go. Yeah. Peace and much love, everyone. My name is Ruben Benny Esguerra, representing New Tradition Music, and I am very happy to be sharing my music with everybody who's listening. Um, this first piece is entitled One Dish, One Spoon, and it's a land acknowledgement piece that celebrates the dish with one spoon treaty territory, which is the land where I live and the land that has inspired my original music. I'm originally from Colombia, and I will be also sharing some traditional Afro-Indigenous Colombian music with you. You can find all this music at newtraditionmusic.com. Newtraditionmusic.com. There we go. One dish, one spoon. So at home, I want you to participate. When I say one dish, I want you to say one spoon or type it out in the chat. There we go. One dish, one spoon. One dish, one spoon. I'ma try to explain it. A peace pact so sacred, so share it, like it, know it's celebrated. One dish is the land where people are expected to limit what they waste. Hoard and war is not accepted. With a request to have no knives on the dish because it's for sharing, and use one spoon so there's no bloodshedding. This treaty territory circles land across Great Lakes on Turtle Island. It's a long distance to undertake. It includes my city known as T.6 or Toronto. Originally a Mohawk word pronounced Toronto. Those streets I walk all day, it's highs and lows, they fill my soul with factual stories that I'll gladly share with you all. Sharing the land has took place long before the great law of peace, the Constitution of the Iroquois Confederacy. One dish, one spoon originally became a treaty between the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee specifically. Later, even Western nations joined to discuss the peace and got the blessing in Onondaga to squash the beef. That's why today we must respect the first constituents and keep the dish clean for our children and new immigrants. Here we go. One dish, one spoon. One dish, one spoon. One dish, one spoon. One dish could be world peace if all the war on the soil does not cease, but instead we're quick to cock it and squeeze. Yes, the field is the dish we must peacefully shield. If we damage the whole field, there won't yield herbs that heal. Let's never forget the elements of hip-hop follow treaties. The history repeats itself. Our story isn't linear. It's time to mend the bond between the new school and the old. And so the story of a new tradition will be told. Systemic forces tell us to dig more oil and gold, but indigenous worldview tells us to dig no more. Just analyze, look for the truth. You shouldn't ignore your heart. The exploitation of our mother was wrong from the start. Eyes of our great-grandchildren look up at us from the earth. So let's walk carefully, don't stomp on the things they deserve. Remember that or write it down, our elders never die. As long as their stories live on and their dreams stay alive. So when you're standing on the streets like Ishpadina and downtown to Toronto, make sure you know which peace treaty you with. All these land acknowledgements become trivial if we don't make learning where we stand a daily ritual. Hey. One dish. Come on, come on. One dish. Everybody say it together. One dish, one spoon. One dish. One dish, one spoon. Thank you very much. And that was an original piece that is going to be featured on my upcoming album, which is entitled A New Tradition Volume 3, Return of the Queasy. This final piece that I'm going to play is was one of the singles on the first album, A New Tradition, and it's entitled Que se acabe el silencio in Spanish, and it's going to feature my two daughters, Alexa Esguerra Carranza, who's going to be playing the traditional tambora, and Alia Esguerra Carranza, who's going to be playing the traditional tambor alegre right here. These are Afro-Colombian instruments. And this is the Afro-Indigenous or the indigenous Colombian Quisi flute from time immemorial. Is an ancient instrument that comes from the world's tallest coastal mountain called Sierra Nevada. And up there are five indigenous nations, the Kogi, Ika, Wiwa, Cancuamo, Arawaco, first ones to play this traditional instrument. And it's the melodic instrument that is featured in all of my music. All right, so this one is entitled Que se acabe el silencio, which means end the silence. And when I say the word tierra, which means earth, I want you to say ancestral. Tierra. Tierra. All right, here we go. And we're going to create the beat using this loop station where I'm recording the instruments live on the spot. Everything is being recorded live on the spot. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start with the beatbox, with the oldest instrument to ever exist, which is the human voice. Here we go. Ahora mismo que el mundo pronto se va a acabar, falta mucho para pensar, cambiar y analizar. Tenemos que resistir cuando tratan de silenciar. Nuestra voz es la unión, esa es la llave para luchar. Grítalo fuerte si te quieren silenciar. Grítalo fuerte, la injusticia va a temblar. Grítalo fuerte que el mundo se va a acabar. El mundo dominado por la desigualdad. Somos los mensajeros, un montón vamos creciendo, repartiendo sentimientos, promoviendo el movimiento. Somos los mensajeros, un montón vamos creciendo, repartiendo sentimientos, promoviendo el movimiento. Que se acabe el silencio. Si con corazón gritamos, nuestro eco se escuchará en los rincones más lejanos. Que se acabe el silencio. Si con corazón gritamos, nuestro eco se escuchará en los rincones más lejanos. En América Latina pedimos tierra ancestral. En África la gente pide su tierra ancestral. El pueblo Mi'kmaq pide su tierra ancestral. El pueblo Haudenosaunee pide su tierra ancestral. El pueblo Mapuche pide su tierra ancestral. El pueblo Wiwa pide su tierra ancestral. Aquí en Turtle Island pedimos tierra ancestral. El pueblo palestino pide su tierra ancestral. En Toronto y en Nueva York los pobres mueren sin hogar. Escuchen bien lo que quiero comunicar. Dueños de todo son pocos y eso está mal. De la única forma que todo esto va a cambiar es si acabamos el silencio, vamos todos a gritar. Somos los mensajeros, como vamos creciendo, repartiendo sentimientos, promoviendo el movimiento. Somos los mensajeros, por montón vamos creciendo, repartiendo sentimientos, promoviendo el movimiento. Que se acabe el silencio. Si con Que se acabe el silencio and the silence. Thank you very much. That's our time once again. Alexa is Guerra Carranza on tambora. Alias Guerra Carranza on tambora alegre. My name is Ruben Benias Guerra. You can find us at newtraditionmusic.com and all our links to our social media you can find there as well. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a blessed evening.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Amnesty Canada's first ever virtual variety show. Big thank you to Benny Esguerra for opening up our event this evening. Thank you so much, Benny. We're so excited to have you with us. And thank you to your daughters, too. Folks, we have lots going on tonight, so let's get started. My name is Addie, and I'll be your host. I'm an Amnesty member and supporter. I have lived on Treaty 1 territory in Winnipeg, Treaty 6 and Treaty 7 territory in Alberta, and on unceded lands of the Algonquin in Ontario in what is now known as Ottawa, before moving here to the magnificent Maritimes. I'm speaking to you now from Fredericton, New Brunswick, which is Wolastoq, Passamaquoddy, and Mi'kmaq territory. I want to take this moment to express gratitude to the Indigenous communities on whose lands I have had the privilege to live and grow. When I grew up in India, I recognized Independence Day every 15th of August, like everybody else there, when we celebrate our independence from colonizers who finally relinquished political control of Indian territory. And many of you participating may have grown up and lived in other countries that eventually won political independence from a colonial power. Maybe you're from Chile and you celebrated Fiestas Patrias 2 days ago on September 18th, commemorating Chilean independence from Spain. Well, before we begin tonight, I want to encourage us all to reflect on the fact that while nations like India and Chile have an Independence Day to celebrate, nations like the Algonquin, the Tsuut'ina on the prairies, and the Mi'kmaq out here by the ocean are still waiting for theirs. I also understand that we are all connecting from all around Canada. So I would invite you to look up and become familiar with the Indigenous territories of your region as well. As settlers, this recognition of the contributions and historic importance of Indigenous peoples must also be clearly and overtly connected to our collective commitment to make the promise and the challenge of truth and reconciliation real in our communities. If you don't know the territory that you live on, please visit native-land.ca to look it up and familiarize yourself. The long road to decolonization starts at home. So before we get started, I just wanted to give you a rundown of the page you're looking at right now. On this main screen here is where you'll see all of our acts. And if you'd like to learn more about anyone that's featured tonight, you can just scroll down to the agenda below the screen. We also have a donate button underneath the video stream. It is your donations that allow Amnesty Canada to continue to protect and promote human rights around the world. So please do contribute if you're able to. And thank you to those who have already donated tonight and to those who contribute monthly and donate regularly already. There's a chat box under the video, just above where the agenda is. It'll ask you to write a username. Please provide your full name or your name with your province so that we know who to reach out to should you win a prize. The chat box that's beside the video or that's attached to the video, you're going to need a Twitch account to participate in that chat box. Please also connect with one another during this event. You can start by introducing yourself and letting us know where you're tuning in from. Please include the territory you're on so others who may not be familiar can get educated. Just so you know, the chat will be erased once the event is done. Now, in a moment, we're going to launch our first ever raffle. So make sure you have the chat ready and open because this is an amazing prize you do not want to miss, and this is how you enter into the raffle. Should you require any assistance during the event, please leave us a comment with your name and email in the chat or send an email to members@amnesty.ca. That's members@amnesty.ca so that we can connect with you in order to assist you. So to kick off the evening, we're going to have our first live raffle with help from our next guest, Marlena Thompson. We're really, really lucky to have Marlena with us, an artist that was featured recently on our Building Immunity in Community campaign, featuring different Indigenous communities as they develop solutions in the face of COVID-19. Marlena Thompson is Mohawk from the Wolf Clan. She was born and raised in Akwesasne, where she lives with her husband and their children. She's been sewing, beading, and creating pieces of art since she was 7 years old, mainly for herself, for ceremonies and powwows, and now does it full-time under her label, Oguajo Creations. Many of Marlena's works have been shown in fashion shows during the Toronto Sky Dome powwow, in the museum in Bonn, Germany, a museum in New York, the Smithsonian, and the Akwesasne International Powwow, as well as local fashion and art shows. We're so absolutely pleased to have Marlena with us this evening and are so thrilled that we get to give away one of her custom masks. We'll also be giving out a few of her smudge rollers in the final raffle of the night, so be sure to stick around for that. I'm going to hand it over to Marlena now to let her talk a little bit about herself and her work.
Sego, everybody. Sego, Guego. Gonna let the Hawi Yugyats, Wagat the Huni Gedalo. My name is Marlena Thompson Baker, Wolf Clan, and I am from Akwesasne. If anybody knows, Akwesasne is located in 3 different provinces and states, Ontario, Quebec, and New York State. And I just want to thank Amnesty International for giving me the opportunity to participate in this all. And I hope everybody gets a chance to get in this raffle. So the mask we're going to be raffling off tonight it's another mask I did similar to the one used in the campaign. This one was specifically made for the Amnesty International raffle, and it depicts the medicine plants we, the Haudenosaunee people, use in our everyday life to combat illnesses and to boost our immune system. And on the mask, it has the cedar balls. You'll see on there, and we make teas with that. And also we burn it and we smudge with it to cleanse the air. There's also the pine balls on it, and you'll see the five pine needles coming off. That's the white pine, and that's also used in tea and protection medicine. And then of course the strawberry plants, which is like real close to my heart because I've used strawberry plants to heal my children, like from everyday stomach flus where they can't hold nothing down. We would make teas out of that. And then inside the mask, so the winner of the mask, you'll feel inside that there's something inside the mask. And that's the sage, the cedar, and sweetgrass, the real medicine sewn inside the mask. And you'll smell that when you put it up to your face. In the center of the mask, and I'm sorry we don't have it to show on here. I think Irina is going to put some pictures up. In the center is the tree of life I beaded. And that's like symbolizes in our Haudenosaunee creation story. In Sky Road, there was this tree. And from that tree, every possible fruit and vegetable and medicine grew on that tree, thus giving its name, the tree of life. So, of course, I felt that was appropriate to be the centerpiece of the mask, of the design. So, yeah. So I hope you enjoy it, to whoever wins it. And the way you can win it is by answering this question I have. And you're going to write the answer in the little chat below. And it's going to be, what year did Amnesty International begin? So go ahead and write the answer in the chat box below. And then Addie will let you know if you're the lucky winner, and then they will get a hold of you for mail-in. So thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Marlena. This is really exciting. I hope whoever gets it, I get to see some of the stuff that they get from you. Folks, you can check out a lot more of Marlena's work in her bio posted below the video screen. We'll announce the winner later on in the evening once we tally the responses. But next up, we're going to have an interview. But hold up, it's not just any old interview. It's an interview with Amnesty Canada's outgoing Secretary General, Alex Neve. And to help us all come to terms with it, we have National Youth Action and Advisory Committee member, Shreya Shah. Shreya is a grade 12 student at the University of Toronto. She is currently a student researcher with the Global Labor Justice Institute and has worked on a documentary that highlights the intersectionality of human rights and fast fashion. She's the founder of the UTS AI chapter and is a TEDx speaker on the privilege of movement. Well, Alex has been with this organization for 20 years now, joining as a member in 1985, and has served as a Secretary General of Amnesty International Canada, English-speaking branch, since 2000. In that role, he has carried out numerous human rights research missions throughout Africa and Latin America, and closer to home to such locations as Grassy Narrows, First Nation in Northwest Ontario, and to Guantanamo Bay. Alex is a lawyer with an LLB from Dalhousie University and a master's degree in international human rights law from the University of Essex. And he was also my articling supervisor. So if I mess up when I continue in my legal work, it's his fault. But before we turn it over to them, up top, you'll see a How to Get Involved tab once we're all done for the evening. Please be sure to check out that webpage and learn more about how you can get involved in AI. Anything from being on our mailing list to joining a local Amnesty group. Also, learn more about other upcoming events and opportunities to engage in human rights. Something exciting we have coming up this year is our annual Right for Rights campaign. Every year around International Human Rights Day on December 10th, hundreds of thousands of people around the world send a letter or email on behalf of people and communities who are at risk of human rights abuses worldwide and who need solidarity and justice. Registration for this year's campaign is now available. Check out a sneak peek of this year's campaign ahead of it going live on October 15th, 2020. Details on your webpage up top. Shreya and Alex, over to you.
Thank you so much. So as Adi mentioned, my name is Shreya Shah. I'm one of the members of Amnesty Canada's National Youth Action Advisory Committee. And I just want to say, Mr. Neve, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation with me today.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to it, Shreya, and absolutely it's Alex, not Mr. Neve.
So over these past 20 years, your leadership to AI Canada has been invaluable. And I would love to know more about the beginnings. How did you get involved into the field of activism, and what drew you to Amnesty Canada as an organization itself?
Well, there's probably two or three key moments along that journey. And part of it goes back to when I was very, very young. I grew up in Calgary, and my father had died at a young age. I was only 8 when he died. And my mother was faced with having to go back to work. This is the early 70s in Alberta. Childcare became a big issue for her. And in those days, the notion that there would be government-supported and provided childcare for young children was considered a socialist plot, and there was certainly not much that was made available in terms of support. So my mother became a daycare activist in the early 70s, and I have really clear memories, even though I was quite young, of her coming home from long, hard days. She worked in a hospital kitchen in Calgary. And I'm sure the only thing she wanted to do was put up her feet for the evening. And instead, she gathered bags of pins and brochures and petitions and headed out to what I guess, I didn't fully understand at the time, were organizing meetings, strategizing meetings, trying to figure out how to mobilize public support. And obviously, I wasn't involved in the strategy around it, but it certainly left a mark on me that I think really made it clear that when you see something around you that is wrong, unjust, and unfair, It's not enough just to grumble or complain or lament the state of affairs. It's best to get involved and do something about it, even if it's tiring, even if it may not be what you want to do that evening. And I've often come back to that over the years, and my mother has since passed away herself, but I think it really did begin there. The amnesty piece comes much later, obviously. When I was at university, I went to the university in Halifax, did both my undergraduate and law degrees at Dalhousie. And I went into law school with a notion of wanting to be involved in using law for social change, but not having a lot specific beyond that. And was walking through the Student Union building at Dal University one day and saw on a bulletin board a notice advertising the monthly meeting of the local Amnesty group. This is in the mid-'80s, and particularly at that time, community groups right across the country, sometimes many in a city. There were 3 very active groups in Halifax in those days, were really the mainstay of Amnesty's activism. I knew a little bit about Amnesty, but not a lot, and decided to go and check it out, and never looked back.
I mean, what an inspirational story. And I think you rightly point out that it is those experiences that we find innocuous in the moment that can really shape the way we kind of go about the world. And so, you've accomplished so much in terms of your amnesty activism campaigns, both nationally and internationally. And so I was wondering, are there any that are really memorable to you? Perhaps the very first activism campaign that you worked on?
Well, in many respects, I suppose what is certainly one of the most memorable is from that very first evening when I went to that. It was a cold winter night. It was, I think, January or February 1985, and I went to that first Amnesty meeting and was totally inspired. Certainly, that young law student who was trying to figure out, how to use law as a pathway to justice and social change was inspired. But I think even more importantly that evening, the activist there was really something that awoke in me that evening. I think in many respects it was what has always been, from day one, really, the very essence of Amnesty's message of activism and campaigning, and that is, as we all know, it is an ugly world out there with huge injustices and problems that often feel insurmountable, and it's easy to feel, therefore, that what could I possibly do to make a difference and affect change? But there's that Amnesty message that says there is something you can do right now with this letter or this petition or this event, and it will make a difference for one person or one community or changing one bad law. Act now. And I was so inspired and lifted up by that sense of contribution and power that evening. Certainly it was when I wrote my first Amnesty International letter. I sat down and put pen to paper, and I still remember it was on behalf of a law student, in fact, ironic given that I was a law student, named Beatrice. Her name has always stuck with me. But very sadly, Beatrice had disappeared in El Salvador in the mid-'80s. This was the time of death squads in El Salvador, and we were writing letters demanding that the El Salvadoran government disclose her whereabouts and ensure there would be justice. And really, it all began at that moment. Certainly, years later, and over these last 20 years of the incredible honor of being the Secretary General, there have been so many other memorable moments. I think of so many moments of freedom, for instance, many. To bring it close to home, many Canadians who have been imprisoned as prisoners of conscience around the world, and Amnesty activists right across the country mobilizing and taking action on behalf of them. And Nasser al-Ras came home from Bahrain, and Homa Hudfar and Hamid Ghashamishal and Saeed Malikpour came home from Iran. Bashir Maktal came home from Ethiopia. But I guess alongside that, I'd have to say, memorable, but memorable also in a sense of being haunted. There are those who didn't gain their freedom. And I'll remember Nguyen Thi Hip, a Canadian woman who was executed summarily in Vietnam, or Zara Kazemi, who died after being raped and tortured in Iran. So certainly those are memorable moments. I think absolutely of the incredible work that we were involved in responding to the serious human rights violations associated with all the things that happened after September the 11th and the war on terror, and the incredible honor for all of us to stand alongside people like Meher Arar and Abdullah Al-Malki, Ahmed Al-Mati, Muyad Nuruddin, Omar Khader, all of whom eventually did win their freedom, and the incredible work that we did standing with them and demanding justice and accountability. And I guess, there's so much I could say, but I guess the other thing I would really want to highlight is the incredible journey over these last 20 years in our work with Indigenous peoples in Canada. And I think in particular of the work that began back in 2004, when we launched our Stolen Sisters campaign and really brought our voices and our solidarity to women and girls and Two-Spirit people across the country who have gone missing, who have been murdered, who have been subjected to horrific levels of violence and discrimination, and the incredible journey we've been on with them since then. That certainly has always been memorable.
Most definitely. And I think you mentioned this idea of a collective responsibility and also all of these campaigns. And sometimes I find that there may be certain doubts in certain people that how will me writing one letter, truly make an impact? So what would you say to those people who are perhaps hesitant to get involved because of the fact that they think that perhaps this is a long journey, that there's so much to do?
Well, I would say they're right that it is a long journey, but that is no reason not to take the first step down that road. And that, of course, many have said this more eloquently than I, but staying silent or not writing that letter or not speaking out, that will certainly never contribute or affect change in any way. But what we know, certainly over the last 70 years of global human rights work, the 60 years that Amnesty International has been pushing for change around the world, but even looking back over decades and centuries of social movements and change, it is people who make it happen. It is people, courageous individuals who come forward and lead movements. It's the countless other individuals who make contributions who affect that change. And in fact, there's virtually no significant change, no advance in justice and freedom and equality that hasn't come from the efforts of individuals insisting that it be so. And we know that from Amnesty International's journey since 1961. When Peter Benenson, the British lawyer who had the initial vision of Amnesty International, began to share that more widely, a lot of people thought he was out to lunch. They thought he was out to lunch, number one, because surely people wouldn't want to join in. Why would they want to take action on behalf of the rights of individuals and communities who they would never know? They also thought he was out to lunch because, why did he actually think that people writing polite letters to dictators and cruel tyrants would make a difference? But he wasn't at all out to lunch. And over these nearly 60 years now, we've clearly seen that there are millions of people who absolutely want to be part of that effort. And our numbers have continued to grow and need to grow. We need to be bigger and bolder and stronger. There's no question about that. But he was also absolutely right that it would make a difference. Not always, because if it had always made a difference by now, we would probably be out of business. But it is absolutely clear over the years, be it the number of prisoners who have been freed, the individuals who have been saved from execution, refugees who have been saved from a deportation, but the broader human rights change that has happened, things like the International Criminal Court coming into being and the Arms Trade Treaty being finalized. All of that because people joined together. All of that because individuals wrote those letters, attended the rallies, signed the petitions, spoke to their neighbors, and didn't give up until the prisoner was freed, the treaty agreed, or the law overturned. So yes, there is an immense world of challenge out there, and it certainly is very easy to feel that it's easier to just sit back and leave it in the hands of others to fight that fight. But we've got to join together, and perhaps now more than ever.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think you rightly point out that even though we have accomplished so much, there's still so much more to do in terms of equity, in terms of, addressing so many human rights violations around the world. So where do you think, and where do you see the future of Amnesty International as an organization, and even Amnesty Canada, going?
Well, that's an excellent beginning is to note that there is so much in front of us because there clearly is. And there's, I think, the fact that in the last few years, we've had new or sort of intensified challenges that have become clearer and clearer. We absolutely now know, for instance, that the global climate crisis is a human rights crisis, not merely an environmental crisis. We sadly are living in a world of more and more hate and polarization and division with leaders everywhere, including south of the border. Pushing and promoting policies that are deepening racism and intolerance and attacks on refugees and sexism. So yes, these are immense challenging times. And of course, now this year, we have everything that has come with the COVID pandemic to add to the mix. So this is, I think, an important time to be asking ourselves that question you've framed, Shreya, of where do we go now? What does this mean for Amnesty? And it seems clear to me that what has always been Amnesty's strength is absolutely still so vital. The ways in which we have been an organization that speaks the truth, documents the truth, is not at all scared or shy to speak truth to power, and gets that information out there. That's what our candle is all about. It's that notion of here's the light shining into the darkness. That's where we began in 1961, and now in 2020, especially in this era of misinformation and fake news and all sorts of political leaders who dismiss and attack the truth. We've got to stand true to that. But clearly, we also need to innovate and challenge ourselves. We need to look internally to make sure that we absolutely are showing to the world an organization that models what we expect of the world. So we need to understand and confront concerns about racism or sexism anywhere within the global Amnesty International movement, and make sure that we tackle that we're honest about that, and we demonstrate that affecting change in the world is also about changing ourselves. And certainly we need to grow. While we have grown immensely since 1961, when one British lawyer began with a dream, and now have well over 7 or 8 million supporters all over the world, we need to double that. We need to triple that. We need to grow everywhere so that that voice of human rights, Amnesty International's voice, but linked up with the partners at the grassroots who are so often the ones really advancing these struggles, is heard everywhere at every time, and that no leader escapes that pressure. That's what I think the big challenge for us moving ahead really is. It's that sense of growth and strength and connection.
Mm-hmm. And in this era of really heightened awareness, we find a lot of it to come from youth. And so in the mission of Amnesty, as you've just really pointed out, where do you see youth playing a role in this? Because as an activist on the ENIAC, and really our goal for Amnesty Canada is to further youth involvement. So how do you see that playing a role?
It couldn't be more essential, and I even think back to my own Amnesty beginnings. As I think Adi said at the beginning, I've been involved since 1985, and that takes me back to when I was a youth, when I was in university, and and I could feel how essential the power and determination and perspective of youth was then. And absolutely, I still think that's central now in 2020 and always will be. And we need to shy away from, I think, the sayings that are often said about youth is the future. Here are our future leaders. Here's the future direction. Absolutely, it is about the present. That the courage, the determination, the perspectives, the leadership that come from youth, be it in the human rights struggle or all struggles, anti-racism, the climate struggle. It is that leadership, it is that vision that comes from youth that is absolutely essential. And I look across Amnesty International in Canada and Amnesty globally, and that's what I see at every turn. And so everything we can do to continue to catalyze and grow that sense of youth involvement, youth participation, youth leadership is absolutely essential, certainly to Amnesty International's growth and strength. But at the end of the day, I really think that's where, that is how we will triumph in the struggle for universal human rights as well.
100%, I think very rightly said. And so listening to you obviously is excellent advice for myself as an activist and just as somebody who is really working towards achieving this mission of Amnesty. But I was wondering, has there been any advice given to you that has really stuck with how you've approached human rights activism in today's age and your perspective on the world?
Well, I certainly, over these 20 years as Secretary General and in the many years before that, have had an incredible array of mentors and teachers and still do and always will. And so perhaps my first word of advice, which I think was shared with me as well, is recognize there's always more to learn. No matter how much of a leadership role you may be in, that sense of humility and openness to recognizing that there's a constant need to learn and change is absolutely essential to human rights work. I certainly remember one of my dearest mentors several times sitting down for conversations with her, and conversations would always begin and end with her asking me if I was listening to my heart. And probably throughout the conversation several times reminding me how important it was to listen to my heart. And I think, within the human rights struggle and, within Amnesty International, where we can often get lost in debates about treaties and legal principles and politics and things that are very cerebral and intellectual, it's absolutely important to always bring it back to that. Listen to your heart. Stay connected to the humanity that is at the very center of the human rights struggle. I think another lesson, certainly advice that I've both received or just absorbed throughout these last decades of my involvement with Amnesty International is it's all about what I think our greatest strength, perhaps in many respects, as Amnesty is, and that is look to each other, be there for each other, link up with each other. It is that sense of collective. We are all about collective outrage, collective determination. And that doesn't just mean linking up arms and being together at the front lines or at the rally or the events. That is looking up for each other, being there for each other, supporting each other, lifting each other up when we may tire. And I think that's another absolutely essential one. And then I think a third piece of advice that I've always held on to is stick to principles. The human rights gives us this incredible framework for a sustainable, just, equal, secure world. It's very easy to get knocked off that path. There will be many challenges. There will be many moments of indecisiveness. There will be something like 9/11 that comes along, and suddenly from all over, those of us who are talking about human rights are being characterized as being apologists for terror or disloyal to our country. And I think it's just so important to never stray from what the human rights vision is all about. Because at the end of the day, even when there are challenging times, even when we're faced with a huge public health emergency as we are now, if we can stick to those core principles, it shows us the way through and ultimately lays the road for what is the sustainable future afterwards.
Most definitely. I think we're in an age of where we see more and more polarization and really getting bogged down on the very small details of everything that we do, but rather looking at that big picture and keeping true to ourselves and what we started off this whole journey with is very, very important. And so coming back really, full circle, after all these experiences and interactions that you've had, if you yourself had to give any advice to your younger self when you first started out on this journey, what would those pieces of advice be?
That's a great question. I'm trying to kind of think back to where I was in those days. I think I would want to, when I began Amnesty's approach to human rights, we've improved and learned over the years as a global movement as well, and many people will know that. In early days, we didn't work on the entirety of human rights. We had some very important core human rights issues that were what we called our mandate in those days. We worked to free prisoners of conscience, to end torture, to eradicate the death penalty, and a number of other concerns. That has changed such that now we have an all-encompassing mission, really, of working to uphold the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I suppose if I was to think back to the activist who was starting out in the late 80s and into the 90s, it would be to really speak about that connectedness of all human rights, that there's not, one human rights violation that somehow isn't connected with and deeply integrated with other human rights concerns. And that as a result of that, everything about how we work on human rights, how we stand in solidarity, how we advance advocacy and campaigning must also have that sense of connectedness, intersection, interdependence. I think I also would, thinking back to the early activist, while certainly even in those days, absolutely I was looking for and embracing partnership and alliances with other activists, with other organizations. I don't think within Amnesty International, and even for me in those days, that I truly understood and appreciated that there's nothing about our human rights work that can't be about those alliances and allyship and coalitions and networks and partnership, that at every turn as we take the next step in a campaign or are figuring out a strategy to free a prisoner of conscience, the question always has to be, who else should I be standing with? Who else is in this space? And how can we make those connections? And I think maybe one last word of advice, and maybe especially in my early days when I was an eager and sometimes impatient activist, it's the incredible importance of persistence and perseverance in our work. Of course, we want to win every prisoner whose freedom we are campaigning for. We want that freedom to come in 24 hours. Every bad law that we're trying to repeal, we want that law gone within a week. But that's rarely the case. And certainly over the years, I've come to truly understand how persistence and perseverance, not giving up, is not just something you have to put up with. It's a fundamental value in human rights work, and it's something we need to foster and embrace and to support in each other, because the forces that are out there that we are seeking to overcome are powerful. They're not going to give up readily. They're not going away. And that needs to be our mantra as well, that we won't go away. We will never give up until we truly have realized what the universal human rights vision is all about.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's traditionally cliche, but it really is true in terms of Amnesty's work, that there is strength in numbers, that there is more we can achieve when we work together rather than individually trying to accomplish what we do. That's very evident in Amnesty's work. So I see that we're approaching towards the end of our time, but would you have any last words for those joining us today from home or wherever they're joining us from in terms of Amnesty activists and just words of advice in general?
Well, before I give words of advice, I think I would simply want to share words of immense gratitude and appreciation and respect. I know we have members and supporters, perhaps some long-standing, perhaps some who are newer to supporting Amnesty from right across the country. And I truly do want to say to you that it is all about you, that everything that makes Amnesty strong and meaningful begins and ends with everything that you bring to this movement. And yes, that includes the financial support that many of you bring. It certainly includes the activism that you initiate and you become part of, be it in your communities or beyond. And it's just being that ambassador, that spokesperson, that emissary for human rights in your networks, with your family, with your friends, in your workplaces, where you go to school, out on a street corner. So thank you for that. None of this, since Amnesty began in 1961 and still today in 2020, would be possible without you. There's no question that we need to dig deeper and we need to grow wider. As I think both of us have said several times during our conversation, there's a lot out there right now. These are challenging, difficult times. I think it's often easy to resort to things like now more than ever. It's never been more important. And probably no matter when we were having this conversation, we'd say that. If it was after the Cold War had ended or in the midst of the War on Terror, we'd been saying that. But I think there is something very, very profound about this time, both in the sense of the range and urgency of the challenges we face, the global climate crisis, in many respects, the most overarching challenge to human rights humanity has perhaps ever faced. And very worrying trends of hate and division that we've talked about. But there is something about this moment. People are on the move. People are gathering even before COVID made it impossible for us all to join together in public squares, etc. In the last couple of years, there's just an incredible sense of the power of the people really coming to the fore. And Amnesty is there with those movements, and we need to be. And as we move through this incredibly anxious and unsettled time of the COVID pandemic, we will, of course, come out of this. There will be times and moments for recovery and, I think, incredible transformation. The things that have been laid bare, the racism, the inequalities, the inequity that have been laid bare by COVID are nothing new, of course, but they cannot be ignored. And it's all about human rights. And this is a moment for those of us who have long had the vision of universal human rights, who have been long engaged in this struggle, and also people who are newer to that struggle, to truly do everything we can, not only to demand of our leaders, that this become this meaningful, profound time of human rights change and transformation, but of creating that transformation ourselves. And I say to all of us in the national and global Amnesty family that we have a central role, an urgent responsibility, an incredible possibility in affecting and pushing that change forward.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. So I see that is all the time that we have today, but I think I can speak on behalf of everyone joining us that your guidance over the past 20 years has truly paved a path to a very bright future for Amnesty Canada. And I personally feel very grateful to be able to continue walking on that, to use your insight as inspiration for myself. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I wish you best of luck in your future endeavors as well.
Well, that's very kind of you, and I have truly enjoyed the conversation, and know that everything you have already brought and are going to continue to bring to the human rights struggle, I'm sure in your community across Canada and around the world, is going to continue to be an immense contribution to creating that better world. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much to Shreya and to you, to Alex. Shreya, you're an inspiring young leader. Thank you for all you do to help Amnesty Canada and to make the world a better place. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep organizing on campus. Keep that flame burning, and keep that light shining. Alex, I don't think anyone's quite sure what we're going to do without you at the head of this organization, but we all find comfort in knowing that you will always be part of the Amnesty family. Thank you for sharing your story, your knowledge, and your wisdom with us all. We're all indebted to you, not just for the work you have done to light the proverbial Amnesty candle where there is darkness, but also for sparking the flame of inspiration in so many young people, like Shreya and myself, albeit a few years ago, throughout your career. Folks, you all know that Alex has been constantly fighting for a better world. The thing is, he's not been doing this alone. Amnesty has a team of incredible campaigners. Justin Mohammed has been at the forefront of the fight for refugee rights in an increasingly dangerous world for migrants forced to flee persecution. Jackie Hansen tirelessly campaigns for gender equality. Anna Collins fights every day for the rights of Indigenous people resisting colonization across this country and around the world. Kathy Price is focused on human rights abuses in Latin America. Tara Skura and Fiona Koza make sure we keep a check on corporate criminality. I like to imagine mining company CEOs in Canada nervously shaking in their boots every time they see one of their names on a memo. But the only way that Amnesty can do all of this is with your support. Amnesty International is a grassroots research and campaigning organization, as opposed to a direct aid organization. And our funding to create communications, work with the media, public awareness campaigns, and grassroots organizing comes from individual supporters such as yourself. As you'll see above, we have a goal of $5,000. Help us reach our goal. We'll also be keeping this webpage up until the end of the month, so feel free to pass this link around once we're done. The donate button is located below the chat screen. And again, thank you so much to everyone who's already donated. Your generosity means so much to us. Thank you to those who give monthly, to those who make periodic gifts, and to those who support us by giving us your time. Everything you give us makes a difference. Now, I have some good news for you and some even better news. The good news is that we have a winner for the raffle for Marlena's mask. And the even better news is you'll have to wait until the end of the show to find out if it's you. I know what you're thinking. How can this be better news? I gotta wait. Well, it's better news because your wait is going to be so much fun. We have so many cool acts lined up, not to mention more raffles. So next up, we'll have author Joanne Vanecola. Joanne was the July-August Amnesty Canada Book Club selection, author of All We Knew But Couldn't Say, released in June 2019. It was featured on the list of top 21 memoirs to read last summer by Bustle magazine and was featured on The Next Chapter by Sheila Rogers, the Toronto Star, The Globe, CTV Mornings, Now Magazine, The Girly Club, and the Lambda Literary Reviews. It was also a bestseller at Glad Day Bookshop in Toronto and made the top 40 books to read in summer 2020 by CBC Books. They also just recorded and released a Kobo exclusive audiobook, detailed in their bio below. Unfortunately, though, they weren't able to join us live today. But They've recorded a message to say hello. And this is important, they'll also launch our next raffle. So get your fingers ready in the chat and pay attention to the video if you want to win the next raffle. Over to Joanne.
Hi everyone, I'm Joanne Vanecola. I'm an author, an actor, an advocate, an activist, and I've recently written a memoir called All We Knew But Couldn't Say, and Amnesty International has it up on their website as their book selection for the summer. I guess it's almost over by now. I guess it's over. It was their summer selection. But I also just recorded the audiobook version through Kobo recently. So give it a listen or a read and let me know what you think. Also, they're giving away 3 copies of my memoir. So I think what you have to do is answer... Amnesty International was a Nobel Prize winner during what year? Amnesty International won a Nobel Prize in what year? If you can answer that question, the first 3 people who answer that in the chat will win a copy of my memoir. And I think one of them is going to be in the final basket as well of the raffle. All right, business out of the way. I want to talk about activism and advocacy. I grew up in a violent home, and I as a survivor of child abuse, and I would say systemic violence culturally, with respect to, being a woman, and then later somebody who came out and identified as lesbian and non-binary. There have been a lot of complicated and complex issues to deal with, especially as somebody who entered the film industry, and still to this day, I constantly, battle homophobia and misogyny, and this is a lot to deal with. But my advocacy spans decades, and it goes back to children's rights, women's rights, the right to choose, LGBTQ rights, ARA actions, anti-racist actions back in the day, and the right to marry before it was legal to marry in Canada. I've had a long history of protest, advocacy, activism. I had founded a nonprofit called Youth Out Loud. There's still a website, youthoutloud.ca, if you're interested in learning about the history of that organization. It was really to raise awareness about child abuse, child sexual violence, and other issues. So that's a little bit about me. But I think, I had to be an advocate. I just felt like, there were too many issues that I'd learned about with respect to class, race, gender, sexuality, poverty, ability, disability. And I just didn't know how to be in my skin a lot of the times, because I just, when you know that there's injustice everywhere and you don't know what to do about it. I mean, I think that's when we need to rise, and I think that was really important for me. I've certainly made a lot of mistakes along the way. I'm certainly no expert, but I think that when you care and you have empathy and you're invested in equity and you want the world to be a better place and to change, then you have to start where you are, do what you can. And so I've always done that in my life, and I think that it has served me well. It has allowed me to rise from my own history and to use my history in a way that I thought might help others. And part of that was writing my memoir and joining other organizations, and including Amnesty International, which I think does amazing work around the world when it comes to women's rights and women's issues and dictatorship and what's happening in countries during war or famine. I mean, there's a lot of issues that Amnesty works with and around. I think I first learned of Amnesty International when I was a teenager, and I remember going to a protest at King's Circle back in the day, and Judy Rebick and a bunch of other people were talking, and it was a long time ago. But I have deep respect for human beings and organizations that step up and do their part. I think, like, with the rise of Me Too and Black Lives Matter and COVID and what we're seeing in terms of the global crisis around climate change and fires and floods, and immigration waves and poverty, and it's just, we can't sustain the planet the way things are going, and I'm deeply distressed, as I'm sure many are, but I'm also quite hopeful at this time, as I feel like there's this massive rise around anti-colonialism, and I think it's time, right? It's time to sort of reckon with the past and really dig deep and strive for equity, across the board in terms of race, gender, sexuality, poverty issues, class issues. I just think that there's no reason why we shouldn't, except for the greedy guts at the top, the greedy people and the dictators at the top, who of course are invested in financial gain.
Hey everyone, thanks so much to Joanne. That was so great.
So I guess I would say just, if you're wanting to get involved, do. I mean, Gen Z is a perfect example of the good and work that's happening right now, and people like Greta and the Black Lives Matter movement, and people talking about Indigenous issues and rights in Canada and in the US. So I guess that's it. That's really all I have to say right now. I've got to cut it off, I think, so I don't blab on for too long. But check out my bio if you like. Feel free to contact me, follow me on Twitter or Instagram, or come check out my website. And if you're interested in talking more about my book, please reach out. And take good care of yourselves and each other. Keep safe, wear a mask. Take good care. And I guess that's it. Thanks for listening.
Hey folks, thanks so much to Joanne. Sorry about the earlier technical difficulty. Listen, we're gonna announce the winner of this raffle later on in the evening, once we tally the responses, so you gotta stick around. Up, you'll see a tab on your screen to learn more about this month's reading selection, Good Citizens Need Not Fear by Maria Reva. Be sure to grab yourself a copy of the book and download the discussion guide. Every month's discussion guide will also include a relevant accompanying action. This month, help us demand the release of prisoner of conscience Constantine Kotov, detained for peacefully protesting in the Russian Federation. Kotov was convicted and sentenced to 4 years in prison because he participated in unsanctioned rallies. Unless his conviction is cleared, his case sets a dangerous precedent for civil liberties and political freedoms in Russia. It could lead to many others being jailed and will almost certainly have a chilling effect on the freedom of peaceful assembly. Details are at the top of your screen. All right, we're gonna break up the evening a little bit now and hear from a longtime member to Amnesty Canada, Cannon. Cannon joined us when she was just 12 years old, hosting an online fundraiser to mark the release of her album, Think Twice, and raised nearly $3,000. Cannon is starting school this fall, so she was not able to join us this evening. But we're going to show a video she had recorded for us, along with a beautiful pre-recorded cover. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Cannon, and I'm an 18-year-old singer-songwriter from upstate New York. When I was 12 years old, I recorded an EP of 6 songs and used the publicity to be a fundraiser for Amnesty International. I had just heard about the shooting of Malala Yousafzai, and at 12 years old, it hit me very hard that not everybody was able to get a fair and equal education. And that is something that really opened my eyes. So we did this fundraiser for Amnesty and raised over $4,000. And Amnesty deserves so much more. I would like to thank them for all the kindness they've given me over the years and for all that they've done for the global community. Thank you. Once upon another time, somebody's hands were felt like mine.
Turned the key and took a drive. Was free. I recall the sun sank low, ugly on the radio. Cigarette was burning slow. So just yellow lines and tire marks, sun-kissed skin, handlebars. Where I am is where I was to be. No enemies to call my own. No porch light on to pull me home. Where I stood was beautiful, because I was free.
Hey folks, thanks so much to Canon. A beautiful voice for a wonderful evening. Be sure to check her out at canonsings.com. That's Canon as in C-A-N-E-N. Before we get to the next act, I want to take a moment to thank those who've donated. Thank you so much. It's because of these donations that we can do the work we do for prisoners of conscience like Constantine Kotov. If you haven't had a chance to donate and want to do so, the link should be right on your screen below the video. Next up, it's my great pleasure to welcome 5 active and engaged Amnesty Canada members who are going to have a chat about their time with Amnesty, how they've remained inspired in the work, and speaking on the future as we see it with Amnesty Canada. So today we have Micah Molina, co-chair of the AI Toronto Action Network. We have Kim Thorson, a field worker and member of the Edmonton Community Group. We have David Menendez, a member of the University of Ottawa Campus Group, a field worker, and a member of the Field Worker Coordinating Council. We have Avreed Jagdev, an active member of the AI Club at her school and national organizer. And finally, your panel moderator, Sharmila Sitaram, longtime member to Amnesty Canada, known to many of you, currently serving on Amnesty International's Global Assembly Preparatory Committee, and is the former president of the board of directors. So over to you, Sharmila.
Thank you so much. We have a fantastic panel, and I'm so excited to learn more about each of their contributions and their interests, and excited for you to hear from them. We certainly have a short period of time, and they have lots to share. So I encourage you to find them online on social media, and hopefully you can connect with them afterwards, and they can be part of your leadership journey in Amnesty. I'm going to start off with the first question, which I say the first question, but really it's 3 questions at once, and each of our members are going to have a chance, or our leaders are going to have a chance to answer. So the first question, I'm going to start off with David. I'm going to go to you, and it's, what is your role in AI now? How did you come to learn about Amnesty Canada, and what are you presently working on or engaged on?
Thank you so much for the introduction, Sharmila and Adi. It's a pleasure to be with everyone here today. So right now, what I'm doing in Amnesty is I serve as a national field worker for Ottawa, which is a sort of leadership, volunteer leadership position. And my job is to try and help connect individuals and activists with the resources and tools that they need to succeed. In addition to that, I'm also a co-president with the Amnesty U Ottawa group. And I also serve as a representative for the Fieldworker Coordinating Committee. And in that role, I try to help make the Fieldworker program just as best as it can be and reach its full potential. Now, how did I learn about Amnesty? Similar to Alex, I think I have always been very passionate about social justice, about human rights, and no matter where you go, Amnesty is the biggest fish there, so they're unavoidable. And I came to learn about them at my university. I was introduced to them by a group of law students, and much sooner than I ever realized, I became a leader in that group on campus. But yeah, it's and some things that I'm working on right now. With the campus group, we're working to create a variety show ourselves for climate justice in about 2 weeks' time. And I also always love to volunteer with the Columbia team at Amnesty, being Colombian myself. And we try to raise awareness of the human rights defenders in Colombia. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
That's wonderful. We get you in with one kind of topic, you're drawn in, and then you meet. That's really neat because you can meet a collective of people, right? A network, and then you've got that passion, with everyone that's surrounding you, and it's so great to connect on that way. Let's ask Micah. Why don't you give us your response to these questions? Thank you.
Everyone, my name is Micah, and currently I am one of the co-chairs with STAPA for Toronto's specialized team ANWAR, which is the Action Network for Women's Human Rights. I first got engaged with Amnesty in my grade 12 final exam for English, actually, and in which we watched a video of a graduation speech in 2008 from Harvard. And in the speech, they spoke about amnesty, and one of the things that really stuck with me was speaking to how Amnesty can mobilize thousands of people who have never been tortured or imprisoned for their beliefs to act on those beliefs of those who have. And it kind of just stuck with me, and it really showed the importance of letter writing and the importance of words and how that can lead to collective action as long as we learn how to empathize and listen. Currently, my group is learning to adjust online since the pandemic, and it's been difficult, but also just rewarding to learn what's available online and how we can utilize it to be more engaging with our team members. And one of the positives of the pandemic and just shifting online has been growing our ANWAR team. And yeah, it's just been a great learning experience too to be with Amnesty and ANWAR. And I definitely recommend everyone to look at the Fall Activism Guide, which will definitely be guiding our upcoming meetings.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. It often starts with one letter, and we know how powerful that is, particularly for our Right for Rights. So I hope everyone does stay tuned for that for your December activities. Let's go down to Kim. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Hi, Sharmila. It's so fun to be interviewed by you. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Kim. My pronouns are she and her. I live on the traditional lands called Amiskwati-Waskahikan, which is also known as Edmonton. I'm a field worker here in Edmonton, and I'm also the leader of the Edmonton Amnesty Group. So it's pretty busy. Presently, we're working on building relationships with Indigenous activists in Edmonton. We want to develop a workshop series on decolonization and its many facets. Decolonizing medicine, decolonizing education, decolonizing water, policing, the legal system, museums, you name it. There's things to be done in terms of decolonization. So that's some of the things that we're engaged with right now. How did I come to learn about Amnesty? Well, I grew up in northern Saskatchewan in a very remote place, and I met this lovely hippie lady named Meg Shatilla. Maybe she's out there somewhere, and she invited me to come and join the Amnesty group. I was 15 years old. It was 1987. It's a long time ago, and I've never left. It's just seemed to be the organization for me. And what we're working on right now is a video series of profiles with local activists in Edmonton, just trying to inspire activists everywhere.
That's wonderful, Kim. And sorry about the moving around. I've just got a lighting issue in my apartment. I don't want to complain because it is beautiful and sunny out. So if you've seen me just moving up, I'm listening, but was just adjusting to try to not to get some light in here. Let's go to Avreet. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name is Avreet, and I'm in grade 12. I'm living in Calgary, Alberta. So currently I'm a national organizer with Amnesty International, and I'm also a regular member of the Social Justice Club at my high school. We work directly alongside Amnesty, and we do a lot of campaigns with them. So how I actually learned about Amnesty International is that it was introduced to me in the 9th grade when I was in English class. We were learning about how to write and format letters. And of course, there was students who said things like, this is useless, like no one writes letters, why are we learning this? And so our teacher actually pulled up Amnesty International's website onto the whiteboard, and she talked to us about Amnesty's work. And then essentially she told us how writing letters has created change and how words do have power. So that's how Amnesty was first introduced to me. And then when I entered high school in grade 10, I had the opportunity to join our Social Justice Club, and I got more involved with Amnesty through there. And then just currently in March, I became a national organizer, which is a huge honor. And so currently with my club at high school just started up. So we're trying to figure out how to get our club started. COVID is making it a little bit difficult. So we're thinking about that. But alongside with some national organizers, I'm working on a solidarity campaign with for Breonna Taylor. And we have collected a variety and a bunch of messages to send to her family. And so we're working on that right now.
That's fantastic. It just always amazes me, the dedication and commitment of our volunteers. You know, we are so fortunate here at Amnesty Canada to have volunteers like each one of you and everyone who's watching and donating for to the cause of human rights. I just feel so fortunate. We're going to go to our question 2. And I'm going to have, we're going to go to Avreet and to Micah. I'm going to ask this question to both of you. What inspired you to join Amnesty, and what inspires you to be active? And let's start with Micah first.
What inspired me to join Amnesty was definitely the idea of empathy and that leading to collective action. And I think Amnesty definitely does a fantastic job of highlighting the idea that this one letter has this power to do something in the world for someone that might not be in the same area as you. And it's just amazing what empathy and collective action can lead to. And Amnesty is such a reminder every day for me of the good things in the world. And definitely the letter writing for sure. Again, just like the importance of words and like the weight that can hold for someone. And I think that's really, really beautiful and just speaks to the human condition. And in terms of what inspires me to be active is definitely the people that I get to work with in my local group and just like Anwar. And I think it just speaks to the diversity of like what we like the ideas that we can be sharing, and they challenge me to do better and continuously learn and listen. And it's just difficult to not see face-to-face interactions, but I'm loving the online platforms that we have available right now.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Avreet.
So I've just always been super passionate about human and civil rights and freedoms. That's just something that I've always been drawn to, which is why I want to go into law in the future, because then I can work more closely with those two things. But I really do enjoy being a part of Amnesty because I feel like it allows me to make an impact, and it's something that I truly care about. So it doesn't feel like a chore or I'm taking time out of my day to do this. It's something that I truly enjoy and look forward to. Especially the letter writing aspect always appealed to me from the very beginning because I'm a huge writer. Like I suck at math, but I'm really good at reading and writing and all of that. And so when I learned that I could just sit in my room and write letters and create change that way, that was something that I thought was super cool and interesting. So yeah.
Thank you. It's so powerful. We don't often think about the power of our signature, the power that we live in Canada. We know that we have systemic issues in Canada and that we're working on those, each one of us. But to think about that, the power that our signature has and writing that we're from Canada when we are writing on behalf of others, I feel so blessed, and I'm sure others do as well. Mm-hmm. We will have an opportunity to perhaps take a question or two from the chat. So if you have something for these fantastic leaders, please do, put it into the chat function, and I'll be looking for one of our colleagues to flag that for me a little bit later on. And I'd like to go to the next question. It's going to go to Kim and David. And I wanted to get your perspective on what do you find unique about Amnesty Canada or Amnesty International in general?
Should I go?
Sorry. And you want to go first. Kim, thank you.
What do I find unique about Amnesty is the commitment of the activists. I have been a member of this organization for 33 years. I have lifelong friends thanks to Amnesty, and those friends are shared passion for advocating for human rights. And the other thing that I think is unique is I always trust the information that's coming from our international team. I trust our research. I know how rigorous the investigation process is before we take on a case, before we take on a campaign. And that's so important to me, that it's accurate and verified and real, so that I feel so comfortable promoting the cause and talking to people and being out there in the world, because of that real trust that I have for our team.
That's great. David, let's hear from you.
Yes, thank you. And before I go on, I should take a cue from Kim and recognize that I'm speaking from unsurrendered, unceded Algonquin land. Thank you, Kim. And I would say what I think is unique about Amnesty is its capacity to build bridges. So I've had people in groups that I've volunteered with who come from various ideological backgrounds, various religious backgrounds. Some of them are motivated by their own values, by their own religion. Some of them not at all. But Amnesty provides an outlet for everyone who's passionate about human rights to be able to come together and focus on one selfless act. And secondly, I also think Amnesty is unique on the world stage. As Kim was saying, it provides such thorough investigations that it has the capacity to, it has so much influence around the world. People know it's a reliable source, people trust it, and it's a very powerful tool for good.
Thank you so much. I'm going to draw on a piece that Avreet opened, which is different professions. She spoke about going into law school. And it's one of the things that I loved about Amnesty when I came into it, when I was in high school, and then I came to an annual general meeting, and my whole world opened up, and I met so many people from so many different careers that I had never really heard of or thought of. And David and Kim and Micah, like you guys are mentioning it in terms of, different political views, religious, views, that we are able to come together and work on human rights. So I think it'd be great to take a moment, if you would like to say, what is your profession, or what do you see as, what you do as your career? How would you describe that? Just to give people a breath of the diversity that we have in our movement. And I'm going to go to, I'll go this time to Kim first, if you wanted to say something on this.
Just about my profession?
Yeah.
I used to be a textbook publisher. I used to be an editor creating textbooks. So education is and the power of the written word is definitely something close to home. Now I am a stay-at-home mom. I run my kids around town, and I'm actually running for school trustee in Edmonton next year.
That's great. We know that human rights education is so important, so I'm not plugging that that your school board will now be having a human rights education if it doesn't already. But these are, just fascinating, the different paths that people take and how Amnesty can be part of that journey throughout, your life. Let's go to Micah if you wanted to say a word on this.
Hi, I'm a project coordinator with a bank, and one of the things that I love about Amnesty is being able to have these lunchtime conversations about these important issues, and definitely raising a letter or just a petition or campaign, whether it's at work or with friends and family or community. Amnesty just does a really good job of making it easy to participate at any levels, and I think it definitely gets other people thinking about these human rights issues. And that's just the beauty of being able to volunteer for this organization.
This totally it resonates so much. Thank you. Lavrie, would you like to say something on this? I know you kind of did, but would you like to add anything?
Well, right now I'm just focusing on getting through high school. But like I said, in the future, I do want to go into law. So.
That's wonderful. And David.
And I'm a law student myself in my final year. And my background, I came from Colombia, actually as a refugee to Canada. And that in part is also what inspired me to volunteer with Amnesty, because I care passionately about refugee rights, about people who took similar routes as me. So that is in my background.
That's wonderful. There's always a personal connection. It's different, but yet the same, right? Of helping others, and that's kind of at the very core. For myself, I was a health and safety advisor, and I work in human resources. And so just even on this panel of the five of us, a breadth of diversity of experiences. Now, I did say I would open it up to a question or two from the chat. So I'm just going to take a look to see if there are any questions or if somebody's able to send me one, and we will read it out loud. So I'm just going to take a moment. Okay, that's a long moment, it feels like, even though it's a second. So I'll wait to see if one is coming through. But, let's go to this question. How do you see the future of human rights and what you see perhaps even evolving with Amnesty International? Where do you see that going? How do you see your activism changing or staying the same? And let's go to, I try to change this up every time, so I start with someone different. So David, I think I haven't started with you yet. We'll go to you.
Okay. So I think I can approach this question in two ways. One is in a practical way, how is activism changing with COVID and the pandemic? And also in a more general sense too, I think it's looking at the future of human rights. It can be really easy to be cynical, especially when you're studying law and when you're in politics. You learn about a lot of the struggles that the little guy has to go up against. For example, in Colombia, a lot of indigenous leaders, labor leaders, almost have a mountain to climb when going up against corporations from abroad who are committing human rights abuses in Colombia. And it can make you very cynical. Like the more you learn about how much injustice continues to persist throughout the world. But at the same time, I'm always very hopeful, very optimistic. I try to stay that way. I look at my groups in the university, up and coming generations, people, as Alex was saying right now, people who are so committed, who are working towards a new vision for the world where human rights is central. So I always get inspired by other fellow activists, by young people around the world, and I'm optimistic.
Okay, this one next. Avery?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
That's okay. I was having the internet unstable as well, so don't worry.
Okay. So I feel like at Amnesty as an organization, we have definitely a very bright future ahead of us because I see so many new members coming in, like at our club at my school. We have a new member wanting to join every single week. So I really do feel like as an organization, as our size and numbers grow, we will also be able to address a larger variety of human rights violations across the world and hopefully make a bigger impact with every coming year.
That's fantastic. Kim, let's go to you next.
Sure. The future of human rights and Amnesty. I hope that we can continue to be a respected source of research and reliable information so that we can sort of leave behind the whole savior model that we may have began with and instead be real support and co-conspirators with Black, Indigenous, queer, and any oppressed peoples and their groups by following their lead and using our strength as a global organization to amplify those voices. Because I think all human rights issues are interconnected. I want us to be agile enough to campaign on whatever issue is needed at the moment to get to the root of what the human rights abuse is. And I'd love to see, that's what I'd love to see for us, is to be an organization that is still such a leader, but supports grassroots activism everywhere.
Kim, thank you so much for those words. I know the viewers can't see it, but one of us on the panel here are shaking our heads very fast and strongly as you were saying those remarks in terms of how we can be more intersectional, more connected, more educated. You know, that commitment to continually learning that's needed for each one of us. And I hear that message so strongly coming through. Micah, let's turn it over to you.
Just to echo what David Everett and Kim have already said, it's so nice to see new members come every day, and I definitely see a more bright and hopeful future for human rights. And I think with technology, it will help us just hopefully do so in a way that's collective and moving forward. And I definitely am so happy to be part of this organization.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I want to thank each one of our panelists for signing in from across the country, being part of this conversation, for the volunteer work that you're doing, inspiring others in your communities, empowering them to take action. We don't have any questions in the chat function at the moment. And so what I will say to that is that we can actually end early. So I want to thank all of our viewers again for coming in. There are so many leaders across the country that we would love to profile. So if you're out there as one of our viewers or thinking about getting more involved, please contact us. Contact us at Amnesty Canada and get involved. There's so many opportunities, as you've heard, whether it's letter writing in your living room, having friends over, respecting your COVID bubble, for your respective community, and perhaps doing a letter writing and potluck, to getting involved in the National Youth Action Committee, to the Fieldworker Coordinating Council, to your local group. So many opportunities, so much work to be doing on human rights. Thank you to everyone on this panel.
Thank you too, Sharmila. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You did an amazing job. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much to the panelists. Congratulations to you all on the important work you do. And I really, truly feel that our movement is so much stronger because of you. And Kim, good luck on that school board race. Now, the moment you have all been waiting for is here. It is not me stopping talking. It is the raffles. So before we head off for the evening, we'd like to announce the winners of our raffles for the night. Thanks so much to everyone that participated. So the winner for the handcrafted beaded mask by Marlena Thompson from Okwaho Creations is Isha, also known as guest 14047687. That's Isha, guest 14047687. Isha, please email members@amnesty.ca. That's members@amnesty.ca, so we can get in touch with you and make sure you get your prize. Now, the three winners for Joanne Vanicola's book, All We Knew But Couldn't Say, are winner number 1, Sheila, guest 14047886. That's Sheila, guest 14047886. The second winner, because remember there were 3 books, the second winner is going to Bob and Catherine. That's Bob and Catherine, guest 14048221. Bob and Catherine, guest 14048221. And finally, the third book is going to Lisa S. All right. The third book's going to Lisa S. So all of you have to email members@amnesty.ca so we know how to get those books to you. Remember to do that. So congratulations, everyone. Thank you so much for getting involved and putting your names in for the raffle. Congratulations to the winner, and congratulations to all of those who stuck around, tried, but it's not over yet because there's still the final raffle. So maybe you're a winner of that one. So hold on to your hats. The final raffle is the gift basket. For this one, everyone's name was entered in a draw to win some really cool AI swag to show off your passion as a human rights defender. And it also includes lots of, in addition to the AI goodies, a couple of Marlena's smudge rollers and a copy of All We Knew But Couldn't Say. So this is a huge prize. And the winner is Vasudha Eraguntla from Saskatoon. The winner is Vasudha Eraguntla from Saskatoon. All right. So if you were a winner tonight, please send us an email at members@amnesty.ca so that we can connect with you and figure out the best way to get you your prizes. Folks, we're nearly at the end, and I have a couple parting notes before you sign off. So stay with me for just a couple minutes. First, I want to thank you. Thanks to everyone who has joined, who's invited their friends and their family, who's donated, participated. If you have any feedback, please email members@amnesty.ca. Thank you also to all of those who work to make this event possible, the panelists, performers, and artists. And a big, big thank you to the staff who worked tirelessly to put together Amnesty's first online variety show. And a major shout out to Irina Chipolova, who did so much work to make this happen. Huge thanks to Irina, and I will just imagine you all clapping for her. Finally, please don't forget to learn more on how you can get involved in the tabs above the screen, and be sure to register yourself for this year's Right for Rights campaign in time for Human Rights Day on December 10th. All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a great night. Maintain physical distancing at all times and stay safe. Bye.